Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, Chair.
Morning, Lwazi.
Yes, morning, Lwazi.
Yes, we do have a quorum, Chair, to start with the meeting, Chairperson.
And our petitioners are here.
Yes, Chairperson.
Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Honorable members of the Portfolio Committee of Public Works and Infrastructure, the executive of the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, Minister Sihle Sigalala, Deputy Minister Ms. Swartz, the acting DG and all those that are with the department, our petitioners from the Wynberg community, you are, or our support staff from the Parliament, you are all welcome in this meeting. Please bear with me. I will switch off my video due to network challenges, and there is also a background noise as there are people that are cleaning the yard outside, so please bear with me on that one if the noise is also being heard in this meeting. Can you flight the agenda, Lwazi? Thank you again. Greetings to everyone in the meeting. Today we are going to deal with a petition that we have received from the community of Wynberg and Waterloo Green. And this petition has gone to all the necessary channels so that it is discussed in the Portfolio Committee, which means it has gone to Parliament, and then the Parliament referred it to the Portfolio Committee that is dealing with the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. So that is why today we are going to listen to this. But if I may outline what is going to happen, we are going to listen, ask questions, ask the department to respond to what is being presented by the petitioners, and then we will discuss as the Portfolio Committee. After discussion, we will then compile a report, take this report to Parliament for it to be discussed in the plenary by all the political parties, even those that are not part of this of this meeting today. We will have our own recommendations, but the Parliament will then decide. So that's how we follow when we have received a petition from the Parliament referred to us as the Portfolio Committee of the Public Works and Infrastructure. On that note, Lwazi, do we have any apologies?
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members and colleagues. Chairperson, I have an apology from Honorable Van Staden. I also have an apology from Minister Zigalala and the acting DG of Public Works who are attending the meeting of Portfolio Committee on Higher Education. Those are the only apologies that I have, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Lwazi. We will then now invite the leader of the delegation. If your delegation, in fact, it is also compulsory that you do that, you then introduce the delegation to the committee.
Good morning, Honorable Chair and Honorable members, and good morning to everyone who is part of the meeting. Honorable Chair, indeed we are here to comply with us having been called by the Portfolio Committee in relation, as you have outlined, to the petition that is before us. And indeed, the mentioned houses are houses that are under us as public works. And these houses fall under the Western Cape region. And with us here, we have the regional manager and her delegation. And they will be the ones that present to us, the regional manager, Penny Penga. She will then introduce her delegation that she is with from the regional office. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and Honorable members.
Thank you so much, DM, for that. But can we allow the department to come in later after the petitioner have presented to us?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Okay, thank you, DM. Thank you, DM. Thank you so much. We then invite the community of Wynberg.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I think the Honorable Sehlolo will be doing an introduction, and then I will be doing the presentation from my side. So if I may, I would like to ask Honorable Sehlolo to do the introductions, please.
Honorable Sehlolo, are you the one who is leading this delegation? Because I don't think that is correct. We should have known that this delegation is coming from you.
No,
remember,
Chair.
we have entertained petitions from you before, even before you came to be a member of this portfolio committee.
That's correct, Chairperson.
But what I would appreciate from you, from the member that just said now that you are going to introduce, just tell us who is going to lead the delegation and allow them to introduce themselves. Not you. I don't think that is correct, as now you are the member. If you were still in another portfolio committee, I would agree. On that note, member of the delegation, it's not because we are undermining you, but we're following the proper procedures, because Honorable Sehlolo is not the leader of the petitioners. Thank you.
Chairperson, you're quite correct. I am the submitter of the petition, and that the Councillor Emil Langehoven, who have just spoken, will be leading the presentation together with members of the community. I did want to highlight, Chairperson, that we recognize and understand the significance of our responsibilities as members of parliament to be able to represent constituencies across the country, and as far as addressing matters that relate to various departments. And as such, we do so by utilizing petitions as part of the mechanisms to allow Parliament, to allow various departments to also be able to address issues that are facing communities across the country. And it is for this reason, Chairperson, that we are in this meeting today to deliberate and get a briefing on the situation that is currently happening with DPWI-owned buildings, land parcels and properties, in specific reference to the one in Waterloo Green in Wynberg. You will recall, Chairperson, that we have, as a committee, on a number of occasions spoken about the state of DPWI-owned properties and the desperate need for the department to begin to address these, whether it is through its Circular 135 or whether it is through addressing the legacy that is the PMTE in as far as addressing these issues, so that we can be able to also contribute to the revenue generation of the department and be able to provide proper properties that can be used by other client departments in as far as they are providing service delivery to South Africans is concerned. Chairperson, as indicated, Councillor Emil Langehoven will do the presentation, and he will then introduce those that are with him this morning. Included are part of the community members of Wynberg, who would also want to make submissions to the committee in as far as the state of these particular buildings is concerned. With your permission, Chairperson, I will leave it at that and allow Councillor Emile Langehoven to carry the presentation and hand over back to you once he is completed with his colleagues that have joined him. Thank you, Chairperson.
Can you see now you want to lead this? That's why I was asking you not to be part of this. It's good that you assisted them to submit this. Over to you, Councillor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And let me start off by apologizing. I am quite ignorant of the procedures of this committee. So I am guided by your wisdom and your leadership. And if I go wrong, please stop me and allow me to learn from this committee. The presentation that I am about to provide, in fact, I would need to be made a host of this meeting so I can present it from my side. There have been a few modifications to the presentation since I've submitted my first one. But the presentation will show the history of the Waterloo Green houses and the agony of the community that they have gone through since the houses have been illegally occupied and taken over by vagrants and then have summarily been destroyed over the passage of time. I've been a ward councillor in Ward 62, which includes the Constantia, Bishop's Court, Wynberg, Plumstead, and Fernwood. For the past 2 years since the last local elections. I'm a first-time councillor, but this is not a first-time problem. The problem exists since probably before 2016 and continues to this day. And as the councillor for the area, I've been asked to present this petition to Parliament so that we can find some kind of inroads to resolving a almost decades-long issue that has been a problem in Wynberg. So before I continue, may I ask if I can share my screen? Oh, yes, I can. If I could just share that. Let me just put it in presentation mode. Okay, if I can just confirm that everybody is able to see my presentation.
Yes, we can see it, Councillor.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. So, good morning, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Members of Parliament, and guests who are currently joining us. The presentation I'll be conducting today is on behalf of a terrorized neighbourhood who have been subjected to crime for nearly a decade, if not more than a decade. This once tranquil part of Wynberg, which is surrounded by 6 schools, namely Wynberg Girls High, Wynberg Boys High, Wynberg Girls Junior, and Wynberg Boys Junior, Simon van der Stel Primary, and Springfield Convent, all border on the Waterloo Green area in Wynberg, which is the epicenter of what has become a staging area for crime visited upon the residents of Wynberg and the schools. The presentation will demonstrate the efforts of the community, law enforcement agencies, schools, and public representatives, amongst others, to attempt to solve a spreading cancer in the area, represented by the tumor that is Waterloo Green, and has metastasized into the surrounding area of Wynberg. It is sad to refer to this area as a cancer because it was not always so. During this presentation, I will attempt to draw a timeline of events that have unfolded so that the honourable members may understand the desperation of a community held captive by fear and dread. Madam Chair, as I have mentioned, I would like to paint a picture for the honourable members. Although I am not able to claim credit for this particular painting, simply because I'm unable to draw much more than a stick figure, I want the honourable members to understand that this area was what the area was like nearly 150 years ago. This image was found on the internet as an image held by the Library of Congress, of all places. I have put the painting as the first slide to illustrate the sense of tranquility that existed in this area once. The perspective we're currently looking at is if we were standing in the middle of the current day Waterloo Road, looking towards the mountain, which can be seen in the background. The curve in the road is still in existence to this day, and in its tarred form of the road. On the right-hand side, just after the pine trees, you'll notice a road which slopes downhill. This is present-day Car Hill Road, which leads into Church Street and to Wynberg. On the other side of that dusty road is a green, grassy area. This was and is to this day known as Waterloo Green. The space was used in the past as a market area to buy and sell goods on market days and served as a playground for children who attended the school nearby. Waterloo Green is not always the horror show it is presented as today. Because I don't have direct images of the houses of Waterloo Green, I must rely on the City of Cape Town City Map Viewer to pull back the curtain of time and view the Waterloo Green houses from above. We are fortunate to have online imagery that goes back decades and map overlays which predates mankind's ability to take to the air and conduct aerial photography. The properties in question are at the center of the image, starting at the corner of Alice Lee Road and Waterloo Green over there, and includes the two other houses along Waterloo Green. These two houses, yeah, I'm hoping you can see where I'm pointing. This is a period during which the houses may have been occupied by members of SAPS. As we are able to see, they are in very good condition. The house in the middle, which is known as Ye Olde Thatch, because of its thatched roof, is perfectly intact and is in a pristine condition. Next to it is the Victorian house, closer to the cul-de-sac, which has a zinc roof. Both houses on the outside look very well kept, and the properties are inviting with lush green trees and manicured green lawns. The backyard is literally a park, which I'm sure anyone with the means would jump at the opportunity to purchase or take the occupation of that property at a reasonable cost, which is why their future is so puzzling and heartbreaking. Between 2011 and 2012, there must have been more rains because the trees seem to be greener and bigger. Everything still looks in order, except if you look in the bottom right-hand corner of in front of the property with the grey roof, we start seeing signs of illegal dumping. Something is clearly starting to happen, but there are no records of complaints during this time as I could find. But the mere fact that dumping is starting to happen is an indication that the rot is starting to set in as early as 2012, and that the warning signals are starting to go off of what lies ahead for Waterloo Green houses. And this is the illegal dumping I'm referring to at the bottom of the image. And then comes 2013. Something has clearly changed. The illegal dumping has been cleaned up, but there is something significantly different that has changed in Ye Olde Thatch, the house in the middle. When we zoom into Ye Olde Thatch, we can see significant damage to the roof. We know of several fires that have taken place on the property, but due to constraints, I was unable to get a record of events from the fire chief to provide a history of incidences. What is fascinating, however, is that there is suddenly a hive of activity around the house driveway every time aerial images are taken of the building. It is as if suddenly an interest was taken in the house, and we will see in every image hereafter several cars parked in the driveway of the building every time that aerial images are taken. As we are able to see, there is significant damage that had been done to the thatched roof at this time, and it is unknown whether it had been brought to the attention of the department. But as previously mentioned, there is a significant increase of vehicles occupying the driveway, and some sort of activity or interest is taken in the building. We now jump to 2016. Once again, the activity at the building has increased. More cars are parked in the driveway, and the damage to the roof seems to have expanded with an attempt to conceal it. What seems to be a caravan or mobile unit is parked in front of the building. I have asked the residents if they recall such a caravan parked in front of the building. I received a response from a resident who indicated that it was indeed a caravan and that it was one of their friends living in the caravan. I asked who they were referring to, and the resident indicated that it was SAPS detectives who were housed in the building at the time. In the short time preparing for this presentation, I have not had the chance to verify this information, but I do take the residents' input seriously. Their interest in the properties at this time had peaked, as it was evident that things were starting to change. It is important to note that this house was declared a national monument in 1974, and it would have been under the occupation of the SAPS that community had watched as the corpse of this national monument started to decay before the very eyes, day after day. But one thing stands out significantly. If I zoom in to take a closer look at the vehicles and bring in the neighboring property, I'm able to draw some comparisons from the images. The vehicles in the driveway of ye-old thatch draw a direct similarity from above in color and shape to those parked in the neighboring property. As we can see, these vehicles are of similar shape, size, and color to the vehicles parked in the neighboring property. It would therefore be interesting to note that property next to the Waterloo Green houses is none other than the SAPS garage, as can be seen in this image. It is important to note that the caravan or the mobile unit is still in place. One of the residents, Mr. Joss White, who has made a submission labeled annexure C2 in the report, indicated that in 2016 that the houses were derelict and that there was evidence of drug dealing and prostitution in the Victorian house next door. According to the submission, there were 20 to 30 people living in the house at the time. There had been 28, the number 28, spray painted on one of the doors, indicating prison gang affiliation. A fire had been reported in the house in 2016, and there were several vagrants living in the bush at the back of the building. It is at this point that the buildings reach the pinnacle, after which we will see a sharp decline into the devastation that follows. In early 2017, there is mounting evidence in the aerial photography that the buildings have been properly illegally occupied. On closer inspection of the thatched building, we are able to see that there are items used to cover the holes in the thatched roof. But it is evident at this stage that the inside of the building is visible and that the damage has extended to the bottom left corner of the thatched roof, where a tree seems to have ingress into the property. And yet there are still cars parked at this building, even in its poor and derelict state. One has to ask why that is. If a large part of the roof has fallen in, exposing the property to the elements, is the house suitable for human habitation, or more importantly, as a location to house members of the SAPS? If the answer is no, then why is there so many vehicles still parked in the driveway? What activity was taking place during this period? And what was the house used for? Unfortunately, I am unable to answer these questions and can only speculate, but the picture speaks for itself and invokes many questions and assumptions around this time. Looking at the Victorian building on the right, We see mounting evidence of illegal dumping, which is always a sign of bin pickers transporting garbage to a site to sort and dispose of that which has no value. This eventually attracts maggots, flies, rats, along with other diseases that come with these pests. The downward spiral of Waterloo Green houses has now accelerated and will soon see its demise. So you might be wondering at this stage, what has happened to the third building in Waterloo Green? Its story is somewhat of a miracle. The building is at this point still in a reasonably good state. I believe its preservation is due to the fact that it is so visible from Ellisley Road that it is nearly impossible to conduct nefarious activity in it without being noticed by neighbors and passers-by. That is the big difference between it and the other two houses. It is exposed while the other two houses are concealed by the Waterloo Green berm in front of the houses, and the fact that it is a cul-de-sac with no buildings having visual sight of the houses from other properties. The two houses are perfectly positioned for privacy and criminality. Then, on the 2nd of November 2017, the inevitable happened. The old thatch was set alight and went up in flames. The article reads like a tragedy, and you can feel the sense of loss that the journalist and the community has in the writing of this article. What is left can only be described as a complete devastation and the end of a historic part of Wynberg. The thatch roof has disappeared. The inside of the house is decimated, and the house now seems to see the end of its life. During this period, the building is registered as a problem building with the City of Cape Town, and several notices are handed over to the DPW property manager, Cindy Green, and the line manager, Lizette or Susie Valentine, which ultimately culminates in the buildings being registered as problem buildings. In the report submitted to the portfolio, I had attached minutes of the Sector 5 Community Police Subforum for Wynberg, which gives an indication of how the property came together to try to find of how the community came together to try to find solutions to the building. They concluded that these properties could be leased to the schools in the area, and discussions were had with Cindy Green, who indicated that the property will not be leased or sold, and that all leases were on hold at the time. It is around this time where letters were sent to Parliament to establish why that was, and it was discovered that the DPWI were not entirely sure what properties they owned, and that a complete audit needed to be done to establish the extent of the immovable property in the DPWI portfolio. My colleague, the Honourable Sehlolo, has informed me that this is still the case to this day. In April 2019, the City of Cape Town endeavours to do a cleanup of the Victorian home next door to the value of 72,000 Rand. But this was short-lived, as the vagrants shortly thereafter moved, after the cleanup, reoccupied the house. 2 other fires were reported in 2019 at the Victorian house. The image speaks for itself. The devastation to the old thatch is irreversible and becoming even worse as we speak. The remaining roof at the old thatch has been stripped, leaving the entire building foundations exposed. The wooden floors, if not burnt to a cinder, have been completely removed, and all that remains are the bones of a carcass that was once a historic building. As can be noted in the above image, pieces of the zinc roof at the Victorian house is slowly being removed and repurposed. This house is also starting to be stripped for parts and will soon see its demise. We can also see that illegal dumping continues, indicating the continued occupation of the Victorian house as it is stripped down to its bare bones. As we can see, large parts of Victorian house's roof has been removed, and this will continue until there is nothing left of it. Madam Chair, I have placed this image here to give a time perspective of the building. As you can see from this map of the Wynberg municipality dated 1888, the old thatch was already in existence. I ask that you take particular notice of the shape of the house with the blue dot on it, which is this one here. It has a long, thin, rectangular building adjoined to a wider rectangular building. Toward the back of the building, over here, we are able to see a little square structure, which I can only imagine was an outbuilding or outside toilet, which was common during those days. I will now show you the building in its current form. Here we are able to see the long, thin, rectangular shape adjoined by the wider rectangular building. We can also see another building on the back, which has been modified into a garage. We are now able to establish that this building is at least 135 years old. In a much older map dated 1864, we are able to see Waterloo Green, which is over here, just above the property labeled War Department, which is now the military base 2 mil in Wynberg. This makes the property more than 160 years in existence. For those of you who appreciate history, this gives a time perspective of the property itself. Once again, we are able to see the stripping down of the Victorian building, which will ultimately share the same fate as its now deceased neighbor. The following images were taken by myself while doing an oversight inspection of the building with the Honorable Samantha Graham-Murray. As you can see from the pictures from left to right, as you walk into the building, you will notice a room, which I would imagine was a lounge area, where the concrete strip that you see just under the window is where the flooring used to be. The flooring has been completely removed, and all you see now is the foundation and the space between what was the flooring and the foundation. It is now filled with garbage. I would imagine that that garbage still remains because there has not been any cleanup conducted in the house, unless there has been without my knowledge by the Department of Public Works. But I do know that the City of Cape Town would not have done any cleanup in this house. The next one is another room which is filled up with garbage, which has just been left. And once again, you can see the concrete strip where the floor used to be, and below is the foundation. This is looking down a passageway into the house, the old Victorian house, and the flooring looks okay, but it actually is not. I went as far as this point in the passageway and noticed that the flooring was replaced by plywood, and you can see boards being placed on the ground over here, possibly between beams, so that people can actually walk on it. I could not go further than that for danger of myself falling through these boards. I'm not a very light person, so I didn't feel that it was able to support my weight, so I couldn't go further down to see what was happening at the end of that passage. And the last picture on the right-hand side is just an image of more dumping happening from materials that have been picked up from probably office space that have been dumped here in this building. This is what the houses look like from the outside today. The bottom right image over here is what remains of the old thatch. So this was the thatch building that is now just a skeleton of itself. And beside that, on the left-hand side, you will see the Victorian house, which is also starting to look to reach the end of its life. Above it, a vibrecrete was erected by the Department of Public Works, to prevent ingress from the vagrants from getting through to the property. However, the security that was placed at the property allowed people in and out of the gates, which completely rendered the service useless. People would walk right past them, and there were times where I've done site visits to the area just to do a site inspection without giving any notice. And I've seen people in the morning coming out of the building and going about their business in Wynberg, doing who knows what. I've also seen many people carrying objects into the building and doing, I'm not sure what they were doing with it. But it was clear that the security that was put in place had absolutely no effect. The walls that were erected around this property or in front of this property had absolutely no effect. And it is quite disappointing that nothing could be done about that, regardless of the many requests that were sent to the Department of Public Works, to Susie Valentine and to Cindy Green, and the meetings that were had to try and discuss ways forward to solve this problem. This image indicates the crime stats that have been recorded in the last year. And most notably, if we look at this section over here, which is line number 4, we can see that a murder had been committed in this area. And this was just in front of the Waterloo Green houses. I would think that this is the first time in probably the history of this area that a murder has been committed in this area. But as you can see from the various other crime stats over here, theft out of motor vehicle, robbery, theft general, malicious damage to property, burglary at business premises, and all sorts of other crimes as well, theft out of motor vehicle, it's clear that Waterloo Green is the staging area for all criminal activity. Now, during the period where there was a steep decline in the area, regular raids were taking place at these properties. However, there were arrests made, but people seem to have returned to these properties and reoccupied them. There seemed to be no solution from a law enforcement point of view to actually rid the property of these residents and actually close it up. And I think the community was reliant on both the law enforcement agencies and the Department of Public Works to come up with a solution to resolve the problem that was created at Waterloo Green. But unfortunately, none of those solutions that were proposed to Department of Public Works has been taken up. In this image, we can see the various news articles in the top left-hand corner over here. This is a Sunday Times article. We had a public meeting at Waterloo Green. The small step forward is with reference to what was during the period that MP Marais, or the Honourable Samantha Graham Marais, was still the shadow minister for the DA, had spoken to the acting director general and had an assurance that there was a budget in place and that demolition was going to happen in April of 2023, this year. We waited months and months after April, and nothing had happened. And it seemed like something just, the entire process had fallen through, and suddenly the demolition was not going to happen. Now, I understand that there was a process here where a heritage consultant a tender was put out for a heritage consultant, and none was received. But there was a decision made after that where no responses were received from a heritage consultant, that the architects within the department would actually directly communicate with the Heritage Western Cape with regards to this matter. I'm not sure how far that process went and whether it actually happened, but it's clear that no decision was made, and we were unable to actually demolish the building or have any kind of action for it. So what I want to do at this point is conclude with some recommendations which come not from me, but from the community itself. The community has taken a look at these properties and have seen purpose and use for it within the surrounding precinct of the schools in the area. I think it's important to take into account that the 6 schools in the area actually service over 2,000 students that don't just come from Wynberg. In fact, the very minimum of them come from Wynberg, but a lot of them do come from more underprivileged areas, and a lot of them are taxied in through the Wynberg public transport interchange and walk down Church Street to go to the school precinct. So we are not talking about a school precinct that services a privileged lot of students. We are looking at a mixed and diverse group of students that attend these schools and rely on these schools for their education. So the schools have come together to provide a proposal of what they believe they can contribute and further the development of this area. And they have looked at the property and have given in proposals to the Department of Public Works to either lease the property or even purchase the property so that they could use the area behind the Waterloo Green houses as parking area. So during sporting events days, these areas become incredibly gridlocked. The roads are narrow and there is very little space for any vehicles to park. And as we know, public transport is not very safe or frequent, especially not rail. And people individually come in with their kids, with their motor vehicles. So this just exacerbates the problem in the school precinct. So the schools came together and have put through the proposal to convert the area behind the Waterloo Green houses into a parking area where they can house all the parents that do come off to drop off their kids for school, or when there are school events, school sporting events that are attended by thousands of learners and parents. And that proposal has been forwarded to the Department of Public Works. And as I've mentioned before, I think it was in 2018, it was mentioned that all leases have been put on hold, that no properties will be sold. And that is as far as that idea went. However, there was a point where a tender had gone out for the leasing of that property of Waterloo Green. The school was a front runner for that bid in the tender, but somehow that tender had fallen away and disappeared, and there was no answer as to what happened to that tender and why it was retracted in the first place. So that left the schools despondent, of course, because they had given forward or have collaborated to submit a proposal that would have supported all 6 schools in the area. So there's a lot of questions around that and why that had disappeared and why the schools are not able to propose for that property. I did, however, add an annexure to the report that I submitted, which outlines the proposal from the schools. So it is the recommendation from the community that there is subdivision of the property into 4 separate urban. That would include the 3 residential houses in the front, and then the property behind those residential houses, which is a wide open space. Single residential subdivision should be given for each of the 3 houses as they stand, and then the properties are disposed of on the property market. Potentially, This could be utilized, the remaining house can be utilized in the short term for educational purposes. And I say educational purposes because I've been approached by several people interested in that house, wanting to set up an educational institution where they could set up an IT center or do some other kind of activities of educational value in that last house. So that would be one of the purposes for it. Otherwise, it could be used as a dormitory for students who live far away from the Wynberg school precinct. They were able to be set up in those dormitories, and they wouldn't have to spend as much money on traveling from places like Khayelitsha and faraway places. The remaining area is to be utilized for the 4 schools and parking for parking purposes and all other purposes as well. Madam Chair, I've reached the end of my presentation, and I trust that the committee have taken notes, and I am open to questions. However, I do have a guest resident in the meeting at the moment. If I can just stop sharing and see where he is. I do have a guest speaker. In fact, I have 2 that I've noticed, Gabriel DeMata and Sam Wilcox-Diedrichs. And I'm not sure if there's a 3rd person in this meeting, but those 2 are the ones that are clearly visible at this point. And I ask your indulgence, Madam Chair, if you are able to give them an opportunity to give their perspective on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor. Just to check, as I'm still the chair of this meeting, on this issue of you allowing, inviting guests, are they part of the petitioners? Because what we can take additions from the petitioners. Not for not from guests, and but if they are part of your petitioners, we can allow them to add on something that you have missed or omitted in your presentation, because I believe that this is not your personal petition. It's the feeling of the Waterloo Green community and the Wynberg community. So if they are part of that, I may allow them to do the additions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as I said in the beginning, I take your advice, and I am very ignorant on the proceedings of this portfolio. But the 2 guests that have been invited to this meeting are residents of Waterloo Green, and they are able to give first-hand experience of what has happened in the area. And they are also part of the petitioners who have signed petitions and have forwarded those to the portfolio.
Okay, thank you so much. That is why in the beginning, I specifically asked you to introduce the delegation. Had you done so, we would then have known that we have other people that will be doing other presentations. We'll allow them to do that.
My apologies, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you.
May I go ahead and introduce the first speaker?
Doing the introduction at the end of
I'm so sorry, Madam Chair.
Okay. Don't introduce the first speaker. Introduce both of these people that are going to speak, or introduce the entire delegation that is here with you.
Okay. So the entire delegation consists of 2 people. One is Gabriel DeMata. He is a resident of Waterloo Green in the surrounding areas of Waterloo Green, and has had direct experience of the impact of the criminality in the area. and he will speak on his personal experiences, and Samantha Wilcox-Diedrichs, who will also provide her input of her personal experience as a resident in the area and the impact that Waterloo Green has had on them. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. We may then invite the first speaker or presenter. After you, in fact, the second presenter.
Good morning, Madam Chair. If I may go first.
Okay.
And good morning, honorable members. Thank you for that, Emile. That was really comprehensive. There's one or two things I'd like to add to Emile's presentation, and just one small correction. But my introduction is that I've been living in the area since 2019. My family and I purchased a property and moved in August 2019. At the same time, also took up employment as an estate agent for Pam Golding, servicing this area known as Wynberg Upper, up of the main road. So I've got personal and professional experience of the Waterloo Green properties. I stay one road down from Waterloo Green. So the south of our home actually looks into the open park area in the middle of the land. So we see it day in, day out. I drive past it daily as a personal experience. We've seen crime in the area, especially during lockdown. It became apparent to us quite early on in our occupancy of our property that, you know, crime was quite a problem in the area, which has resulted in the latest murder, which is shocking to say the least, especially given that it's on Department of Public Works land. So I meet people every day in the area in Wynberg, and we speak about these properties daily. I've got hands-on experience of the effect of these properties on the values in the area from a professional perspective. And it's quite perplexing to me that the Department of Public Works would run these properties as a loss, where there are developers, private and public developers, who would be salivating to do something to that land to maximize the return on the land. I am an attorney by professional experience, but I now practice as an estate agent. And I realize the value of land every day. I see the gains that people can make on land. The properties we bought here, or the property we bought here, is one of 3 in a complex. And I saw the profit that developer made, notwithstanding the Waterloo Green properties. So it's quite perplexing to me that the Department of Public Works wouldn't want to maximize a return on this land. Some of the most valuable land in South Africa, in the southern suburbs of Cape Town, because there's not big pockets of land anymore. And I do note in Emile's presentation the estimated value of 33.4 million. You know, that's something that the department could look at getting into their income and doing more with, or at the very least fix up the properties and lease them out. I was wondering if I could just make a slight correction to Emile's presentation by sharing my screen, Madam Chair, because there actually are 3 other properties which are to the north of that land, which are occupied by detectives. They are used, but it's worthwhile noting those properties in this discussion, because whatever happens from here on out, we don't want any more rot as a community to happen to other properties. We want it to be solved. We want a positive solution to be put in place so that the space goes from a negative space to a positive space. And there's great examples of that in the other communities around us. At the bottom of Wynberg, there's a community garden which got set up, and that's helped eradicate the vagrant issues that were prevalent on those exact pieces of land, and it's now turned it into a positive space. And hearing that presentation, I was quite moved and inspired to do something positive for our community, and that's helped our community. The Claremont Bowling Green was also inhabited by vagrants, and that now is a thriving sporting facility that has just raised the whole area and brought a whole positive energy to the area. So, you know, that's the nice thing about property, is that we can make it something other than what it is. We just need help, and we just need the landowner to want to do something about it. And again, it's quite perplexing that the landowner wouldn't want to maximize return on these properties, or at least get some positive aspect for the community out of these properties. It's worth noting that the big park area in the middle of Waterloo Green is not accessible to the public. I actually saw someone walking their dog there last night, and I wondered how they got in. So the public's not even using this as a park. So the property as it stands is just a negative space, save for the 4 homes which are occupied. So if possible, I'd like to share my screen. There we go. Just to elaborate on Emil's presentation, which was very comprehensive. So I'm sharing now. So this is a system that we use called CMA as estate agents to pick up data on properties, historical data from the Chief's office. I stay in this property here, 7B Felden Road, or 7B Seymour Road. We are one of 3 in a complex, so we look directly south over this. This is the entire property. So when we talk about the property, we're talking about the borders from Cavan Road onto Ellerslie Road and then onto Waterloo Green. So the 2 problem homes sit to the south of Waterloo Green. I'll show you. Just wanted to zoom out on Emil's presentation slightly. So that entire property is Department of Public Works. And then the SAPS garage is the most active tenant and the biggest tenant. And then there are 2 properties, one on the corner of Cavan and one on the corner of Cavan and Ellerslie Road. Those are in good use. There's a few broken windows here, so there needs to be some upkeep, but it does seem to be occupied currently. And then there's a third on the bend of Cavan Road, which is opposite the girls' school. That doesn't look like it's in as bad a use as the 2 problem buildings. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 homes on the Waterloo Green land, and then the garages for SAPS. So I note in Emil's suggestion from the community that the suggestion is to subdivide these 3 properties, give the school the open green land for parking, which I'll get to now is a fabulous suggestion because that helps alleviate another problem for the community. But the challenge then is what happens to these 3 homes? So my suggestion is subdivide the 6 homes into their own urban and let the Department of Public Works decide to either keep leasing out the 3 good ones or sell them or make it a positive return. And then the open space in the middle remains an urban that they can rent out, and added to that an urban for the SAPS garages. So the challenge the department has currently is that it only has 1 pocket of land. So it's difficult to separate the homes from that. So it needs to look at a holistic solution currently. So while we answer suggestions, my suggestion adding to Emil's is to subdivide 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, lease those or sell those separately, and then lease the open land to the school. Give them the custodianship. I mean, you can see the school sports fields are right here. What happens during sports days and pick up and drop off is that Cavan Road becomes a one-way depending on which way you're going, because there's parking on the right and the left. People park down Ellerslie Road, people park down Seymour Road, people park all the way up Cavan Road. When there's sports at the boys' high school, that's to the north here, Alexander Road becomes quite packed. So having this green land turned into a parking lot would be a fantastic solution for the community and for the schools to have safe parking for their visitors and for their pupils' parents. And it's a big piece of land. It would go a long way to alleviating the traffic off of Cabin Road, Seymour, Ellerslie, and Alexander Road. I got stuck here the other day. It was a sports day. So what happened was there was parking on either side of Seymour Road, so you could only fit one car through. There were already 4 cars stacked. I came around the corner and I was stuck this way with cars behind me. It was quite frustrating, and my house is right there. So, that's a problem the community faces on when it's pick up, drop off, and big sporting events at the various schools, and that solution just makes so much sense. It's for the public works. It works for the public. The solution is in the name. So just to reiterate, these 3 properties aren't a big problem. Properties of this isn't a big problem. The big problem are these 2 hidden away. But while we find solutions, we need to deal with these other properties at the same time, because if we only subdivide these 3, give the custodianship of this land to the school, these 3 properties run the same fate. They run the risk of running the same fate and becoming derelict unless they're dealt with all together. And that would be my suggestion to the powers that be at the Department of Public Works. Just again to reiterate, I have hands-on knowledge of properties that sell in the area. I've sold most of the properties in the area. So I hear often on why buyers aren't putting in higher prices, and they do cite this as a prime example of the uncertainty in the area around the Department of Public Works land. That word uncertainty is not good for the property market, and it's not good for City of Cape Town to make more rates and taxes to provide more services to the greater community and the most needy. So that would go a long way to solving that problem. And from a personal point of view, as a community member, I run past these properties every day. They're a big problem. They're an hassle for the community. There's pupils that walk along these roads. They get harassed. There's crime that's happened with pupils. We can't beg and plead any more than what we are, but we just really want help to make this space a positive space, and the solutions are there. Private property developers would go wild for this. Notwithstanding that, if it wasn't private, it's got a public aspect to it to serve the schools. So we just really approach the committee and hopefully sense gets through to Department of Public Works that we want to help, and we want to turn this into a positive space that we can look back in the next 10 years and realize how much positive energy that's brought to the schools with the parking and to whoever uses these homes if they get sold or released. But from a personal standpoint, dealing with property every day, it's an absolute travesty that the potential of these properties are just being scorned at. In this pocket of the southern suburbs, where it is the epicenter of Cape Town. The southern suburbs of Cape Town originated out of Chelsea Village, which is just around the corner here. And to have a pocket of land that is so close by to the epicenter of the southern suburbs that is not being utilized to its full potential, at least some potential, is a big travesty. And we plead with the committee, we plead with the Department of Public Works to help us take this to a positive space and bring in income for Department of Public Works. I mean, this is a cash cow that, if they keep the land, they could have a good lease with the school. Or if they sell it, they could get some income in. I mean, there's options at their disposal, and there are solutions for this problem. They're right here, and it just takes the Department of Public Works as the landowner, to maximize the return on their land, and for someone to help us do something about it so that we can solve those criminal elements in our community. Thank you.
Hi, can I go?
Just before you go, Madam, the serious challenge that I'm experiencing, as much as I could hear that he is reinforcing what has been said by Councillor, when you present something, especially which comes to what the last speaker has done, shows us map. We don't have those maps with us because it was not part of the presentation. We allow you to emphasize or raise points that have been missed by the main presenter. But then if you bring in a document like the last speaker did, showing us maps that we don't have, then that becomes a challenge. So we'll give you the chance, hoping that you will not have a document that we don't have that you present to us. Remember, the one that was presented by Councillor is the document that we have, followed by the attachments. We have read that and we're ready even to deliberate on this one. Okay, thank you. Over to you.
Good day, Honourable Chairwoman and everyone here in the meeting. My name is Sam Wilcox-Dedricks. I've been living in Waterloo Road for the last 10 years. And I just want to give a perspective on a more practical level from a resident's point of view. So we obviously have noticed the decay of the property for many years, and we haven't seen any meaningful attempts or resolution from a national government perspective to address the problem and secure not only the historical value of the buildings and also the safety and security of those who reside in the area. And for me, that's mainly the scholars, the teachers, the parents who use the schools, the people who walk through the neighborhood. We are adjacent to the military base. There are people who come to worship in the churches nearby, and it is simply not safe. Excessive drug abuse in these buildings have had a wide range of security and social impacts affecting both the security, the safety, and the quality of life for residents. So the kinds of things that have been very obvious to us, and I'm not going to go into all of them, is increased crime. Emil has taken you through all the statistics. For me, what has been very, very fearful has been the drug-related violence. And these are the issues with fighting, extreme nudity, which endanger this, and extreme nudity, which endangers the safety of residents, and most importantly, the school children. And what it's meant to me personally is that I actually can't run down my road anymore. It is simply not safe. My husband was mugged at gunpoint in the area. And so things like leisure activities of just as a tax-paying citizen, running and walking the dog down the road is just, we have to stop. It's not a viable option for us, and we have to now drive to safer parts of the city to actually participate in those activities. I should be able to enjoy those activities from just outside my door. In terms of health and safety, one thing that hasn't been raised here today is that the presence of all the drug activity has led to a lot of discarded drug paraphernalia around the area. So things like needles, etc., and other health hazards. And this is a huge risk to the children, and there are literally thousands of children in the area, and also to pets. The Waterloo Green houses are now in 100% state of decay, and the historical significance of the property has been lost, and it really has become a den supporting the lifestyle of drug abusers. It's put a strain on our local law enforcement, so they are faced with dealing they've got a huge workload. Wynberg Main Road is a haven of criminal activity, and so the resource demands are quite are limited. And the impact of what's happening on Waterloo Green means that it diverts resources away from addressing other community safety concerns. There's been a direct economic impact for myself and my husband. We were horrified to understand this year when the valuations of our property was done, that our prime property has the value has decreased by 12.5%, and it applies to 2 homes next to each other. And the other side of this is that as a result of these lower valuations, there's revenue lost in the city, because now we're not paying the same level of rates. There are obviously other issues related to drug abuse, other public health concerns, the spread of infectious diseases, including HIV and hepatitis, through needle sharing and risky behaviors. And these also put a strain on our local healthcare resources. And then lastly, the reduced trust in authorities. You know, as residents in a neighborhood with rampant drug abuse, I've become disillusioned with local authorities and government institutions in terms of their support in trying to sort out this challenge for us, or to help us find a solution to this challenge. And that it's filled with negative consequences. And as Gabriel de Mata has said today, you know, we really are interested in trying to address these issues in a meaningful way and to deliver great resolutions for everyone. And I say this pivoting from a space of the importance of having spatial equality in this country, and not just looking after the privileged in this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. I think on that note, honorable members, we have heard from the petitioners. Before we engage the report, let's ask the department to present their side on this matter, and then as members will then interact. DM. Deputy Minister, or the manager of the Cape Town Regional Office.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, and good morning to the honorable members, as well as the residents, and good morning to the Deputy Minister and colleagues in attendance. Honorable Chairperson, I will just maybe give a brief background on the use of this property, you know, the historical background. The subject property that is being discussed here today is a property that has historically been allocated to SAPS, and I think that has been confirmed by the Councillor Langenhoven also in his presentation. And there's some improvements on the property. There is a recent improvement, which is the SAPS garage, and I think it's a new recent investment which is made on the property. And there's also houses which the presenters referred to. These houses, I think of the 6 houses, 3 houses were then handed back in between 2016 and 2017, respectively, to the Department of Public Works. And these houses, when they were returned or handed back or relinquished back to the department by SAPS, they were already invaded and the deterioration had already taken place. So they were handed back, they were illegally occupied and even vandalized. And I think around 2021, if I'm not mistaken, we then appointed a team of security company. Not sure Susie will confirm as to when we appointed security for Wynberg, to try and contain, the illegal occupation and invasion of the subject property. And then we also started a process where we were engaging our user departments. We have engaged the Department of Defense, from number 2 military hospital, and we've also engaged Department of Justice. Department of Justice, they've registered their interest in one house, the one that is still in good condition. They've registered their interest because they would want to use that house as an office. We have done a condition assessment, a technical detailed condition assessment of the house. In terms of the cost, it's going to require us to register a project. We are working with the client in terms of confirming funds in order for us to effect the renovations on the subject property. And then on the 2 properties, as well as the vacant open land, we've engaged Department of Defense, because at the time, I think it was between 2021 and 2022, the idea from the Department of Defense was to extend their services from number 2 military hospital to that house, to that site, because the property is a stone thrown away from number 2 military hospital. But everything that we are planning and which we are discussing with the clients, it's subject to, budget confirmation, from the users, if they would have funds to rehabilitate and restore those houses into. But at the same time, because we're still waiting for their confirmation, and especially defense, because I think with justice, they've confirmed that they've given us in writing and registered their interest in formally. So we are working with them. With defense, it's just an in-principle interest into the property, which still needs to be registered formally, but is still a subject of the confirmation of the budget. We then embarked on a process within the department where we then approached a head office for an approval to demolish the houses, because we cannot just demolish a state property without the necessary approvals. A property, what do you call the investment? An investment analysis was done. And we were then given a go-ahead to demolish, but it must be subjected to the heritage process. We had to observe the heritage process in demolishing the houses due to their historical and heritage status. We had gone out on tender, Honorable Chair, twice. And I think we've been communicating these attempts to the community, where we update them as to what is happening and where we are with these processes. We've gone out on tender twice to appoint a heritage consultant, because it's not something that it can be done by the department. It must be sanctioned by the Western Cape Heritage Council. We must get an approval from the Western Cape Heritage Council. And twice we've gone out on tender without any success in 2022. And because we are not getting any success from the market to appoint a heritage consultant, because internally we do not have heritage consultants, we then approached the City of Cape Town for an advice and guidance on the matter. In Mr. Denzel, who's our professional architect, he's in the meeting. He can talk more on that aspect. Recently, since 2022, we've also engaged City of Cape Town And City of Cape Town, they've also registered their concerns and with regard to the heritage status and significance of these properties. And they are not so keen in us pursuing the demolition as in terms of their guidelines because these properties, they've got a grade A and 3A and 3B. And that guideline, it states that these properties must be conserved due to their significance, due to their heritage significance, and therefore we need to preserve them. But then the City of Cape Town, I think now in November, we met with them as well to say, they were saying that they're not saying that we shouldn't necessarily approach the Heritage Council, but as a city, they are not, in support of us demolishing these houses. And I think we also, as a department, we acknowledge and appreciate the historical significance of these houses. And we are now reconsidering, the demolition as either we must look at preserving these properties. Yes, indeed, Honorable Chair, the properties have been illegally occupied, but the number has since gone down to, we have, I think it's 5, occupants that are on site. We've got security that are manning, the properties. And we've introduced the reason why even the number has decreased into 5 to date is because we then had to introduce very stringent measures in terms of what time they come in and what time they go out and so forth. We are also in the process, we are going to be approaching the State Attorney's Office for the eviction of the illegal occupants, because even if we were to pursue the demolishing, we had to first, evict the occupants, and also the responsibility to find these occupants alternative accommodation. We are going to be engaging the City of Cape Town as well in that regard to assist us, because they are the custodians who are responsible for providing human settlements. So we'll be joining the city in our application to evict the current occupants. The process is with the state attorney. We are in the process of appointing a senior counsel who will be, dealing with our matter going forward. But we are as well pursuing Department of Defense to see if whether we cannot get their confirmation for them to take over, because the idea at the time, which was presented to us by the Department of Defense, because at Wynberg Military Hospital, they have doctors that work for them. So the idea was to establish a complex where they would then house their doctors. And the facility, the subject property in question is a stone thrown away from number 2 Military Hospital, and it made sense, but it's just the issue of budget. And as I indicated, that the corner house, we are going to be renovating that house for the Department of Justice to use, because they've got an office which is not far from where the subject property is, and they would want to use that property. But we are going to continue with the eviction of the occupants, and we are in the process as well of, we are just finalizing the appointment of our panel of cleaners for cleaning and clearing of properties. We are going to be clearing that property. We've cleared it last year. We had a team that was on site that we normally do these cleanups, at different intervals. So we are going to be appointing a service provider to embark on a cleanup of the site. But if all fails, Honorable Chairperson, because we just need to get through this process of the consultation with the two, especially with the Department of Defense, if that process, it fails, the plan, as Mr. Gabriel was saying, is to subdivide that property. Because as said, some of those houses are still being used by the Department of Police. We subdivide the areas that are used by the client, And then the idea is to put that property out on the open market. And I think the reason why we would want to put it out on the open market is because of its significance and value attached to the property. So, and I think we would want to achieve the highest and best use of the property, because parking, I don't think, would be the highest and best use of the property. Rather, put it out on the open market. The market then would dictate as to what would be the highest and best use of the property. And I think, as also honorable member who has indicated, that we do have a circular 135, which then allows us to put out some of these properties, but it's such that we just need to get, but I think we would want then to preserve, you know, the properties, whoever, if we go out on tender for long-term leases, because disposals is not our first option. We would want to put out this property on a long-term lease for whatever purpose. It would be subject to the preservation of those properties in terms of their heritage significance. I'm not sure if whether I have left out anything, Chairperson, but I understand that maybe at this meeting you would want to get timelines in terms of when will everything that I've spoken to happen. We are going to be giving the Department of Defense an ultimatum for them to respond formally within 21 days if they still want to pursue what they have presented to the department. And also, but at least with Department of Defense, they have confirmed that they would want to use the other property. And then I think in the new year, we would have to put this property out on tender if everything else that we are planning to achieve in terms of better utilizing and ensuring that the issues that the residents are grappling with are dealt with. And I think we acknowledge, and we are very sorry that we have, as a department, allowed these properties to deteriorate to the extent that they've deteriorated. But there are some efforts, you know, within the department to deal with this issue. It's not to say that we are sitting and doing nothing. And it would have been, it would be nice to have that property reserved for the Department of Defense, for the doctors, for them to establish a village for the doctors that are servicing number 2 military hospital. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Ms. Pengwa, the regional manager of the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure in Cape Town. As the DM indicated that they are here. But let me again, even with you, raise this concern that sometimes it is not good for us, excuse me, as the honorable members that are here in this meeting that have to interact with these reports. When you are presenting to us with no written submission for us to read and follow you as you are responding. But so we will appreciate if you can send that to Lwazi, all what you have just said, so that when we interact properly, we have that information. I know that members have written notes. We appreciate that there is information that has been sent to Lwazi. We will look at that. Thank you. Honorable members, this is the presentation from the department and the petitioners on the issue of these properties. I now invite you to interact, ask questions. Honorable Siwisa, we'll start with you. Honorable Siwisa, we may lose her as she is driving in KZN, so we may lose her due to network challenges as she is currently driving. Honorable Trink, Honorable Van Schalkwyk, Honorable Sihlolo, Honorable Mashele, the reason, Honorable Sihlolo, I didn't want you to be part of the delegation is because I wanted you to participate in asking questions. Now you are raising your head, but we will allow you to interact with this. On my side, these are the hands that I can see. Is Honorable Siwisa, followed by Honorable Tring, Honorable Van Schalkwyk, Honorable Sihlolo, and Honorable Mashele. In that order, please, Honorable members.
Thank you, Chair, and greetings to everyone, Chair. I'm going to be brief because I'm rushing. Chair, I've listened to the presentation from the petitioners. I've listened to the response from the Regional Office of Western Cape. And Chair, there's one thing I'm concerned about, and nobody's saying anything about it. The third presenter spoke about the use of drugs, raised concern about drug use in the community, and spoke about HIV and all of those things. And when we got the response, because I thought that somewhere in between the petitioners would say, yes, one of the reasons is the high rate of crime in the area itself. So we want to convert this particular property into a parking lot, which is not bad, it's understandable. And then there are also buildings that are dilapidating and they're also being vandalized. Even now we are hearing that there's illegal occupation. And I thought in between somewhere, somebody would suggest to say, can't we convert some of these buildings that are dilapidating into rehab centers? Because we can get the parking lot, we can do tenders, we can do leases for 20 years, but if we do not deal with the drug abuse in a community, we are not solving. That thing is not going to, the parking lot is not going to solve anything. Leases for long term is not going to solve the drug, because a drug user will find a way to commit crime unless the person is rehabilitated. That's one of the things that I've picked up. For a woman to be marked at gun, to come and say, I understand, because some of us family members have been through where a family member has been marked or at gunpoint. It's very frustrating, it's heartbreaking. And we can only solve, because each and every person that goes and marks or robs, it means that that person wants to feed their drug addiction for them to get the next fix, and they'll go the extra mile. It doesn't matter what we do. So I thought that because now we are being told by military bases and the doctors, but nobody is raising the issue to say some of these buildings, we can actually use them. Bring on board social development to say, here are buildings, the community is concerned about the drug abuse in their community. Can't we rehabilitate these buildings and turn them into rehabilitation centers for drug users? If we don't deal with the drug abuse in the community, then we are still going to have a problem of crime. Drug users find ways to commit crime. If their minds are taken to say that I want to have a fix, they'll go an extra mile. They don't care what they do. So I think that the regional office needs to explore and try to approach social development to say that we've got buildings. Can't we make a rehab center in this community? Because this is one of the concerns that were raised by the petitioners that came to the portfolio of Public Works to say we have a high rate of drug abuse in our community. And because of that, it means that the crime rate is also going up. So we need to rehabilitate. So can't you come on board and maybe utilize some of these houses that we want to take on long-term leases to private owners and turn them into rehab centers? I think for that, that's my only input, Chair, and appreciate the opportunity that you gave me. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Sibisa. Honorable Tring.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, let me firstly appreciate the presentations by all of the various presenters, and maybe just indicate that what we are seeing is a consequence of what this particular committee has been speaking about for many years. And that is for the department to know where its properties are and the condition of its properties. And that speaks to our asset register and the fact that we have an asset register that at times is, at most times, currently is incomplete. So knowing where your properties are is one thing, but also knowing the condition of your property is another. And I think there was an admission by the department that they have allowed the property to deteriorate to the state that it is. And that also, Chair, is an indication, that admission is an indication of the risk that the department has actually put the community in. Because by allowing the property to deteriorate to the state that it's in, where it's been vandalized and has been taken over by whether it's those who are using drugs or those who are perpetuating crime, it places the community at risk. And to a large extent, the responsibility then must be accepted by the department, because if the property had been properly kept and maintained, the community would not be having the challenges, crime and other challenges that they are currently facing. So I think that's the first thing, Chair. Now, I cannot understand how we can allow such a valuable piece of property, but maybe I can, because we've seen this across the country, unfortunately. We've seen this also with the Telkom towers, and we know what's happening there. And other properties, I think, around the country belonging to the department. But here you have a valuable piece of real estate, estimated to be worth at least over 30 million rand. And if one were to just take, Chair, and just a quick thumb suck, just maybe 3 of those 6 properties, that if they were properly maintained and leased, you could be getting a rental of between 10 to 15,000 rand per month on those particular properties, easily. And if one just calculates that, you're looking at 120,000 rand, 360,000 rand per annum on those particular properties. Look at the wastage of income that could have been generated. Now that's just 3 properties. I'm not sure about the other properties and what their whether there are leases and so on attached to that. But this also, Chair, speaks to fruitless, wasteful expenditure or a lack of it in this particular case. One of the presenters, Mr. Damata, spoke about many property developers that would be salivating at the opportunity to be able to develop the property. This gives you an indication of the value that your property developers within the area see on with regards to the property there, just how valuable that particular property is. And Chair, I think it's sad where within the department there is no commensurate appreciation for the value of such property. Now, I want to conclude, Chair, by saying that we cannot, I think it's untenable to allow the residents to continue to live in those particular conditions where they cannot appreciate their surroundings, they cannot walk on the streets with their children, with their dogs, with their pets, that the area is becoming a hazard in terms of their safety, and it's untenable. So the turnaround times and one of the presenters from the department, the presenter from the department has made reference to timelines, and that's what I haven't heard. I haven't heard timelines. Timelines by which we said, you know, we've got the Department of Defense that expressed an interest. We've got the Department of Justice that, you know, we may have something going with the Department of Justice. We may look at using the property for housing doctors from one of the military bases. And this, unfortunately for me, it's all kind of up in the air. What I would like to see and what we should be asking from the department, from this committee, are those timelines. By when? When are those properties going to be, by when are those properties going to be cleaned out? When are those individuals who are illegally occupying the property going to be relocated? So I think that is going to be clear. What is the, within the next 2 to 3 months, what is actually going to be happening? And then post that, what is the firm decisions that we are going to be taking with regards to the property, so that we can communicate, as this committee, we can communicate to the residents exactly what this department is going to be doing. So, Chair, I would like to suggest that we actually have those clear timelines in terms of what is going to be done step by step to rectify the situation on the ground with regards to the properties in the area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Tring. Honorable Van Schalkwyk.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good morning to the Honorable Chairperson, members, as well as our staff and the petitioners that presented to us this morning. And I would like to appreciate the presentation that has been made. Chairperson, I want to start with the naming of the petition, where it states the petition from a resident of Waterloo, and it states to investigate the request for the demolition of 2 derelict houses owned by the DPWI and further on. So we've received the presentation, and there's a lot of recommendations that's been made, but in main, Chairperson, the petition was to demolish the 2 properties. Just take that into consideration when moving forward. Then, Chairperson, I have point of concern in terms of these properties. We take note that it has been used by the South African Police Service, and my question would be, can we get a clarification for how long these properties were in use by SAPS? And according to the Government Immovable Asset Management Act, user department is required to inform the custodian of any planned changes to a lease agreement. And we don't have any information in that regard. At which point were these properties vacated by SAPS? Why was it vacated? And was the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure informed of the planned move? What processes were put in place to secure the properties and to ensure that another user department received consideration for possible use after the vacation by SAPS? We need to know, Chairperson, in what state were the properties when SAPS vacated it? We also need to note, Chairperson, that in terms of Section 3B and C above, as well as D 2, 3, and 4 of GEAMA, were not followed by SAPS. What penalties are in place if the responsible user department did not follow the provisions of this legislation? And at the time of the incident in 2017, SAPS reported that the fire that has destroyed the properties were being investigated as a case of arson. Was the investigation concluded, and what was the outcome in this regard? So in this regard, Chairperson, we are not hearing anything from SAPS We are just speaking to the petitioners and to the department. So there's a lot of recommendations that has been made by the petitioners, but when we listen to the presentation that has been made by DPWI of Western Cape, they didn't refer to any of the recommendations as a possible solution in terms of the way forward of these properties. They instead mention that they are considering the Department of Defense to have that properties used for doctors' accommodation. Were there any discussions with the Department of Defense in this regard, and what were the responses? Do they have a plan in place? And like Honorable Tring indicated, what is the time frames attached to any of these plans? Then also they speak about alternative accommodation that they need to get for the current occupiers before eviction notices can be served. What is the process, or how far is the negotiations or the plans with City of Cape Town in terms of alternative accommodation for these occupiers? So that's in short, Chairperson, that I need to know, and I'll pause there. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Honorable Van Schalkwyk. Honorable Sihlalo.
Chairperson, thank you for the opportunity. I am load shed, so I hope that I will be able to keep my video on and still be able to engage the committee accordingly. But if I do lose signal, please do let me know so that I may be able to switch off my video. Chairperson, I think, for me personally, I think that it's unacceptable that we did not receive a comprehensive presentation from the department beforehand, because the department was alerted of this particular meeting, just as we were as members of the committee alerted, excuse me, of the meeting. I find the presentation by the regional manager all over the place, and I'm not really too sure whether I'm able to make any sense of it. But I would want to start here, Chair. I would want perhaps the regional manager to start perhaps by addressing the letter that is included as part of the annexure that was submitted on the letter dated 18 February 2022. There was a response to Honorable Samantha Graham-Marais' letter that was dated 1st February 2022 in respect of the process on the demolition of the houses in question. And I think if we can start there, I think that would offer us some comfort in as far as what has transpired over the past almost year and a half, almost 2 years since that particular letter was written back to Honorable Graham-Marais. Chair, we're finding ourselves now in as far as these properties are concerned, we're going to find ourselves in the same position where the department is going to give a similar presentation or submission, verbal submission, in relation to Excelsior Court building in Berea, Durban. Because everything that has been said by the regional manager is precisely what the department has been saying about Excelsior Court, in as far as a client department vacating the building without notice, without the department actually taking back custodianship of its own property and making sure that it is able to provide the requisite security in order to protect the buildings from the illegal occupation. And I think Honorable Van Staden was clear in her questions in relation to Giama in terms of whether SAPS had actually dealt with the giving back of the buildings back to the Department of Public Works in as far as that particular act is concerned. But this is outside of a standing policy of the department in as far as disposing of properties is concerned. Now, outside of a policy from DPWI on issues that have been addressed by this committee, as far as the Aegis presentation is concerned, as far as the Public Service Commission presentation is concerned, as far as the Commission of Gender Equality presentation is concerned, we will find ourselves in this position over and over again, where such prime properties are being allowed to deteriorate to this extent and being illegally occupied and being vandalized, as is the case with Excelsior Court, an 11-story building in Durban. I find it wholly unacceptable, Chair, that we've not really received a comprehensive presentation from the department in as far as this particular issue is concerned. And I would urge, Chair, that we allow the department to go and give us as a portfolio committee a comprehensive response that includes the timelines that Honorable Thring was talking about, that includes the feedback that Honorable Van Schalkwyk was talking about in as far as the issue between the court, the case that has been investigated by SAPS, in as far as the questions that relate to Guiama as raised by Honorable Van Staden, in as far as Guiama is concerned. Because I don't think that it is acceptable to receive a presentation that is comprehensive in terms of what the issue is with the buildings, and yet the department arriving to the meeting without a proper presentation, without giving us timelines, without informing us of what has happened to all the communications that have transpired previously as per the annexures that have been attached with the presentation from Councillor Emile Langehoven, and what the response has been from the department. I think there is a link missing there. And I don't think that as a committee chair, we should accept the presentation as given to us in its current form by the department, and really give 7 days or however many days that we often agree as the department, as a committee rather, to have a comprehensive presentation, a written submission of some sort from the department on this issue. Because my fear is that should we receive as a portfolio committee a petition from Berea Durban on Excelsior Court, this will be the very same responses that we get from the department. This will be done. We're engaging with that particular client department. This one left, did not inform us, and so forth and so on and stuff like that. And it's unacceptable that we are in this position, Chairperson, in the context of the presentation that we received from the department. And I would urge, Chair, that we really be taken seriously in as far as this is concerned, and that we give the timelines to 7 days to the department to give us a comprehensive written report on this particular issue, and also to respond to the questions that have been asked by Honorable Sivisa, Honorable Van Schalkwyk, as well as Honorable Thring, in as far as Guiama is concerned, in as far as SAPS is concerned. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Sihlolo. Honorable Mashele, though he had indicated that his network is not so stable, I don't know whether he's still with us. He was with us, went out, or you're back. Okay. Please continue, Honorable Mashele.
Thank you very much, Chair. Greetings to yourself, fellow members of the Portfolio Committee and the support staff. And also let me greet the petitioners themselves. Chair, I think it's of an interest that we're dealing with this petition, and the department knows our standpoint in relation to their properties. The department must look at this petition as an eye-opener, because as members of this committee, many times we have raised an issue about the department and its properties that are lying all over the country, majority of them that are neglected, and they become enablers of criminal activities. And I think as the department is responding to this particular petition, it must take into consideration that we're not going to come every day and speak about one item after the other. Chair, I think I have listened to the petitioners, and the first petitioner brought in a proposal about the proper part of the property given to the school, and either to go private. The second petitioner was very clear. He's pro-private, that the property could be better used in private, but and also I understand from the industry where it comes from. To me, Chair, what will be of an interest first, it will be that public works property should be placed in better use, effectively so. Of course, I have got particular interest that the first preference to me will be for public purposes. If you speak about school, I'll be pro that. Notwithstanding what the department is proposing, if the department proposes that it must be given to public entities, also I'm also fine with that. What should not happen, Chair, is that the petitioners must not move a view that the property must be taken to school, only to find that later the school have disposed the property to the private sector. That we must guard against. But of an interest, Chair, I want to know from the petitioners, what is their view in relation to expropriation of land with nil compensation for public purposes? I want to know their view in relation to that. Are they for it or are they against it? And if they are for expropriation with nil compensation for public interest, do they believe the policy can be used right now to expropriate the land for the benefit of the school? That is what probably I want to get from the petitioners. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Marshall. I don't have any other hands now.
Sorry, Chairperson. Sorry, Chair.
Yes, Honorable Pascal Beck, you want to add something?
Yeah. Yes, Chairperson.
Okay.
I just need to know something that I forgot. If the department has a disposal policy that outlines the organizations and steps along which these types of properties are disposed of, because it seems to me that if the process is far too loose, Chairperson. So we need some clarification in that regard too. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Van Schalkwyk. Thank you again, honorable members, for the questions that you have raised. Just before we allow the department and the petitioners to respond to some of your comments and questions, let me also add my voice in appreciating this presentation from the petitioners, and also indicating to them that as the Portfolio Committee of Public Works and Infrastructure and as public representatives in Parliament sent by the respective political parties, it is really our duty to deal with the petitions. So you've done nothing wrong. You did well by bringing this to us and follow the proper procedures, that it must be taken to Parliament so that Parliament would refer to us. Because when you send your concerns directly to us, yes, we may look at them, but we will not be able to discuss them in this platform, which is the Portfolio Committee. Just a few things of my observation and comments that I would like to raise on this issue of this petition. One, part of the recommendation is that the property must be subdivided. That really is not the responsibility of Public Works and Infrastructure. The subdivision, it lies with the municipality, but I understand why you're bringing it to Public Works and Infrastructure, though it's only the municipalities that subdivides properties and do all those things. But I agree with all the members that are saying that there are some missing links, if you may say it. We don't know about SAPs. yes, regional manager raised some issues, but as I indicated after we have spoken, Madam, that we would have appreciated a written presentation. For you to say something that you have written down, it doesn't assist us, because if I had that written presentation now, I would go on and say, okay, SAPS has these plans. This is the attachment from SAPS. Defense, you are saying that defense wants to utilize that, health wants to utilize that, because it's a stone's throw away, whatever, that the doctors can stay there. But I don't have that information in front of me. I just wrote it down because you were saying it. So the reason we always request that information should be submitted to us is because we don't want to look at the notes. Is there something that I've missed? But if you have an information in front of you, it's easier for you to deal with that. It's so unfortunate, but it's towards the year end, and already, we have scheduled meetings that are going to sit up to the last day of the parliament this term or this quarter. So we won't be able to fix another meeting on this, but we do need, as this portfolio committee, a information about SAPS. We also need information about defense and also about these doctors. One of the things that we have said in agreeing with all the members is that Department of Public Works and Infrastructure has a potential to raise revenue through these properties. It is clear from what we have seen in the maps, this is a prime property that Department of Public Works, utilizing it properly, they would really raise revenue, not to let the property to disintegrate to the state that it is currently now. Two, this property, to me, it's one of those properties due to the number of years that are attributed to it. I understand why you said you wanted heritage people. This is really a heritage site, more than 150 years of its existence. It is really a heritage site. So it needs to be preserved, which I agree with you. But also the part that is not utilized, that is not part of those buildings, it needs then to be developed and utilized so that the department then raise revenue on this one. And I really agree. As a woman and as a South African, we know that crime is really out of proportions in our country. So if you have previously jogged around the street where you're staying, and now you have to drive more than 10 kilometers because you want to keep healthy and fit, because you are afraid that in one of the properties there are these criminal elements, it is really not on. So mine would be to say we need the reports, as I've indicated, SAPS, defense, and the issue about the doctors. We need that information together with the submission that the department has made, because we have to prepare a holistic report as the portfolio committee to the plenary, which that report will be discussed in plenary for all the other political parties to engage on this issue. So we really need that. We really need that, Ms. Peng. We really need that from you and DM. We need that information from you. And on that note, I will then invite the petitioners, Councillor Mr. Tamet and Ms. Sam, to respond if you feel that some of the questions, I saw a pointed question directly to you by Honorable Mashele and all the others, and Ms. Penga, also you must respond and DM. Over to you. We'll start with the petitioners.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for your wise words, and I appreciate all the comments that have been made to the portfolio. Madam Chair, I want to start off with some of your comments that you've made, and I've highlighted a few of them that I need to just make mention of. So in your comments, you've mentioned that the Department of Public Works doesn't do subdivision, and that is the mandate of the City of Cape Town. However, the Department of Public Works still needs to make the application for a subdivision, and that then lies within the City of Cape Town to do the subdivision for them. So there is a partnership here that can happen. And if the Department of Public Works makes that application to the City of Cape Town, we will absolutely assist in that process. I'll also take note of your comment on the site being a heritage site and the fact that it needs to be preserved. And as I've mentioned before, I'm an amateur historian, and it really pains me to see houses and history like this being almost erased from the face of South Africa and our communities. If there is a space to actually preserve these buildings, then I would absolutely support that. However, it's going to take millions, tens of millions of rands to bring them back to life and bring them back to what they were before. And I just don't know whether the Department of Public Works has the funding to actually do that. But if that was an idea, and if that was something that was proposed and that was followed through on, it would certainly make me very happy to see those buildings being resurrected from the dead. In terms of the other comment that you made, Madam Chair, with regards to the crime against women, there's one thing that I did not mention in my presentation that just pops into mind when you mentioned that, is that one lady one day came up to me and said to me that there was a time where she lives very close to the Waterloo Green, actually opposite them, and she related the story where she had a house break-in, she was tied up, she had a gun pointed at her head, and her property was robbed. She will never come out with that story because she's afraid that those perpetrators will actually come back for her and kill her. In an age of gender-based violence, I think that is top of mind in my mind as the ward councillor for Ward 62. I have to keep the safety of my residents at top of mind. And if that is the extent that this problem is actually reaching the level that it's reaching, then surely there must be something urgent about this. We cannot have, as I said in the beginning, this is a neighborhood that lives in fear and in terror and in dread every day because they are unsure of what's going to happen to them next. Women are unable to walk down the streets or run down the streets simply because they might fall within the same fate or even worse. So I absolutely agree with you on that terms, Madam Chair. I just want to go backwards and look at the proposals made by Ms. Pentler, and the two properties to be assigned to the Department of Defense to extend the services to the two houses from 2 military hospital. Now, I've been to 2 military hospital, immaculate facilities, I must say. The hospital itself is absolutely state of the art. But go a bit further and look at the housing of the people that live on the military base, and it's not in such a great state. In fact, there was one lady that approached me as the ward councillor to ask me whether they could actually purchase the house that they're living in so that they could renovate the property themselves because they're not allowed to do so, or rather that if they do and they are moved away, they would lose all of that investment in the property. And the state of the houses aren't in that great state. And I have a fear that if we move Department of Defense staff to these properties, it might fall within the same fate. Now, I've inquired about it, and all of the property that Department of Defense occupies is Department of Public Works property. So ultimately, the custodian is the Department of Public Works. There was also mention about the Circular 135, which I did have eyes on at one point, and none of the Waterloo Green or other properties in the area were on that circular, which is very disappointing because I was hoping that there would have been a plan to dispose of the properties so that they could be further developed. I want to go on to the comments made by Honorable Siwisa. There was mention about the development of rehab centers, that there aren't any rehab centers in the area, and that the drug problem is a massive problem. And I fully agree with that. It is a massive problem in Wynberg. The source of these, the drug problem comes from the main road and some of the invaded buildings there, also coming through the Wynberg taxi rank, which feeds into the drug habits of the many drug addicts in Wynberg and Plumstead. What I have done as the ward councillor, I am looking at, and I've started negotiations with an organization called U-Turn, who is an organization that will provide services which includes counseling, drug rehabilitation, and other types of assistance to both homeless and drug addicts. And that will be located in Church Street in Wynberg. So there is a facility for that. However, if we had to think of the houses at Waterloo Green as a rehabilitation center, I would imagine that would be far too small for the amount of drug addicts that there are in Wynberg. We need a bigger, more holistic approach to drug addiction in Wynberg. And I think those houses are a little bit too unsuitable. We would need many, many beds for many people to be accommodated and treated at a facility. Then I think I agree with most of the points of from the Honourable Thring. And then the Honourable van Schalkwyk mentioned the demolition of the two properties. Now, interestingly enough, the acting DG at the time, during the period where Honourable Samantha Graham-Murray was the shadow minister, had actually made an agreement that the houses would be demolished. I have a document where it states that there is funding available, and the only thing that was stopping them was Heritage Western Cape. And the fact that they could not get a heritage consultant to provide input on that. But then there was the condition that the architects from the Department of Public Works would actually speak directly to the to Heritage Western Cape, so that they could come to some sort of agreement there. Now, I'm not sure whether the regional manager has mentioned if there was that communication that actually happened. It would be interesting to find out whether that did happen and what the outcomes were. But I can guarantee you, I have a letter on the 2nd of April, I think it was the 2nd of April, where it states that the money is available to demolish the houses. All they needed was a heritage consultant, and then it was a go. But none of that happened. And unfortunately, that has broken a lot of the trust within the residents of the area and the Department of Public Works. I honestly could have had probably 20 people from the area coming to this meeting today. But because of that break in the trust relationship, I don't believe that a lot of them feel that anything can come of this meeting. I have hope that there will be some good that comes from this meeting, and that the honourable members here today will actually take this up. And from what I can see, it is a larger issue than just Waterloo Green. It is much bigger than that, and it's a countrywide issue. And then I get to Honourable Mashele, with regards to the question of the use of the properties for public purposes and expropriation without compensation, with no compensation. no. We believe in expropriation with compensation, and that would be putting the property on the property market, where compensation would be gained via the purchasing of those properties. I doubt very much whether the city of Cape Town is interested in compensation without, expropriation without compensation for the for the use of public purposes. I think this needs to go on the property market, if that has to come to that, and the compensation is derived from that. Madam Chair, I think that concludes what I needed to say, and I thank you very much.
Thank you,
Madam-
Councillor. Yes, Ms. Sam?
Madam Chair, I'd like to go next, and there are three things I'd like to address. The first one is well, let me start by saying this. I think there really needs to, and we would all be served well if there was an acceptance of reality. The reality is that those buildings it's over. There is no more historical value. There is no value in spending public funds to try and resurrect something that this country has chosen to go to rack and ruin. For me, when I think of what our tax-paying rand should be going to, that is not a good use of money. And a lot of the discussion around the options that are available appear to be quite time-consuming. It comes across as if this is still going to take a number of years to resolve. And we've run out of time, quite frankly, with respect to that. In terms of a proposal for defence to be involved, I would like to highlight that the Department of Public Works owns the military base. I live opposite the military base, and the Colonel has showed 199% disdain to the residents of this community in terms of the maintenance of the base. We had a massive fire in February this year because the military base makes no effort to cut the grass. The flare up from that fire blew across the historic Chelsea village. A thatch roof caught alight and a house was destroyed. So as a community, I am confident to say we have absolutely no faith in the Department of Defence taking over those properties and doing it in a way that honors what it means to be a community member, a community builder, and to operate as part of a collective. Because really, we don't exist on our own. We exist as a community. And just to coin a phrase that has been so popular in the last few weeks, we are stronger together. We are best when we all are involved in solutions to the benefit of all South Africans. And then the third thing I'd like to say, there was points highlighted about the opportunity for a more holistic approach to dealing with the drug pandemic that exists, and it's really rife in the Wynberg space. And in my summary, which I sent through to Councillor Langenhoven, there were 5 or 3 points that dealt with this. We are very aware that it isn't just about removing a house, that it requires efforts that focus on both prevention, treatment, addressing the root causes of drug abuse, and specifically the impact of impressionable children, the thousands of children who are witnessing all of this happening every day. And I'd like to thank everyone for their time and for including us in the session today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sam. Thank you, Councillor. Department? Ms. Pengla, DM?
I'm here, Honorable Chair.
Or you will allow Ms. Pengla first, ne?
Yes, I will allow Ms. Penga and the other officials who are in the meeting to respond to comments
Okay.
and questions made, Honorable Chair, and then I will come in, Honorable Chair. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, I think we've taken note of the issues raised, and especially in terms of the shortcomings of maybe our presentation. And I'm going to request that maybe we be given that opportunity, the 7-day opportunity, so that we can put this presentation together with the sequence of events and finishing it off with a clear way forward and the timelines as to what is going to happen when. That is my first request, Honorable Chair, because there's quite a number of issues raised by the honorable members. But I'm going to request that Mr. Denzel Fortain, who, through you, Chair, who's the senior architect in the department, maybe just to talk on the process of the demolition and what we've done as a department in terms of following that, because I hear from the councillor that, you know, the letter that we responded to, where we were explaining the process that the department was going, because we first had to get approval from our investment analysis in the department, because we couldn't just proceed with the demolition. There's work that must be done. And there was then a final conclusion to say that, okay, you can proceed, but it's subject to that. We must first get clearance if whether we can demolish the houses. If we, and Honorable Chair, we can allow Mr. Fortain maybe to just talk to that aspect, but everything else that has been raised by the members, we've taken note. We will prepare that comprehensive submission for the committee, for your indulgence, Chairperson, through our principles for submission to Parliament, if that is in order. If Mr. Fortain then can be given that opportunity to respond, Honorable Chair.
Okay.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson and members of Parliament, guests, and also my principals. In response to the demolition, our first point of contact when it comes to demolitions or heritage buildings is obviously the City of Cape Town. Now, after the 2 attempts that we made to appoint a heritage consultant, the department, our in-house professionals, embarked on a condition assessment just to highlight the conditions of the buildings and structures which are graded as a 3A, that is number 3 Waterloo Green, and number 5 Waterloo Green is a grade 3B, which is quite high grading for a heritage building. So after the 2 attempts, we then did our conditional assessment. Also, engineering report was done, and that was presented to the City of Cape Town. They responded in writing to us, and they strongly object to the total demolition of the structures. That was the latest, and that I think will be included in our presentation that we must prepare. We are now obviously have to engage Heritage Western Cape because they're the final decision makers in this matter. But we've started with this process, and knowingly that they will now ask us again to appoint a heritage consultant. This is not within our abilities as architectural professional in the department, and for that we'll have to again try and put a tender out for the services of these professionals. The City of Cape Town also indicated that they will assist with names of people that can assist us with these documents, and that will also be done as part of the submission to Heritage of obviously the report to you guys. I think that is it from my side.
DM, any words that you would like to add?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and honorable members, and to also thank the petitioners, and to also say before I give my comments, Honorable Chair, that I see that the petitioners are very despondent and do not have faith in their concern being taken serious. I think that, Chair, we appreciate that Parliament has indeed sent back this issue to the Portfolio Committee, because indeed Parliament does deem petitions brought by petitioners very serious, and that is why we are sitting here today. And to firstly apologize to you, Honorable Chair, and to the Portfolio Committee and petitioners that the department had not prepared a comprehensive consolidated presentation, and that through you, Chair, we request that we be given 7 days to submit everything and give a comprehensive report. And that I should say, Chair, that indeed where we are seated at, we do have a policy that allow us to demolish properties, but that policy also cannot then overrule or override what is deemed as heritage sites, but that we do have a disposing of policy. And I think that in the presentation, it will also be attached, and it will fully explain what our policy allows us to do and not to do. And that currently, indeed, the state of the properties at Waterloo are not in a good space, and does impact on the livelihoods of the residents around there, Chair. And that as the last official has responded, that indeed the region has been at pains writing to and fro between themselves and the city. And I think that they will indeed also attach their communications, and that their last communication is that we are not allowed to demolish, in that it is not also in our expectancy that we do have the experts within the department, but that, as it has been said, we are going to appoint, and then also would have to go and tender for us to comply with what Western Cape Heritage is requesting us to do, because they have said that we cannot demolish at all, but that the other buildings which are not heritage, Honorable Chair and honorable members, and to you petitioners, that the department would indeed have to come up with a solution. And for us, it is very important that we do have a way of how we generate income through these buildings, because I must raise it also, Chair, that indeed what SAPS has done is that SAPS has alerted Public Works that in all the 11 regions where they have SAPS buildings and what we called SAPS houses, is that in all the 11 regions, they do not want those buildings anymore, because what they've indicated is that SAPS is going to discontinue their policy on providing residential accommodation for their members. So indeed, Chair, it is going to be throughout the country in the 11 regions where SAPS has got properties, where we are going to, as a department, have to put in place security measures, and then find a way of an alternative usage of these buildings, so that we do not have throughout the country have illegal occupation and vandalism must be stopped throughout the country in the 11 regions, because I think that that will also be included and attached on what SAPS is saying in terms of all their properties where they were housing their members, because they have indicated that they're discontinuing their policies. But I must say, we do thank the petitioners for bringing their petition and for Parliament to having brought it here, because we are going to work on a solution, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, that will allow the residents to be comfortable in that we have sought to attend to this petition, which is very important. But I must say, Chair, that indeed some of these things that are expected from us to be done do not directly all fall on us as public works. We have the municipalities to deal with, and now we equally have Heritage Western Cape that we need to comply with. But that as a department, we are indeed prepared to bring solutions where solutions should be brought. And that we must acknowledge, Honorable Chair, that this has been going on for years, looking at the dates and looking how far back this challenge has been on the table. And it has also compounded into what we have now in terms of the properties that are in the state that they're in, and that we are also going to look at the possible solutions. And what one of the presenters here has raised, that they are not comfortable with defense, but we are going to include in our presentation what defense is saying and intends to do, so that we all are in a position and we do reach a stage where we are agreeing what are the best solutions for both the communities and the department and government itself and the previous users and intended users for the properties. We thank you very much, Honorable Chair, for giving us this opportunity to appear in front of the committee. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. And we also thank the petitioners. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, DM, Ms. Penga, and the other official, the petitioners for bringing this to us. I think Councillor indicated from what we have said that it's something that we have discussed, but we're not coming clear with the recommendations. The reality, Councillor, is that yes, we have discussed other properties, but today we're dealing with your petition, not other properties that we have raised from excuse me, different parts of the country where Public Works own those properties, and saying that Public Works do something with these properties. It's good that this petition has been sent to Parliament and it's here with us discussing, because it further emphasizes what we have said as the Portfolio Committee, that Public Works must deal with its property portfolio in the correct manner. As we have indicated that for us to compile a proper report to be taken to Parliament, there is information that is missing, information that the department has promised that it is going to give us within 7 days. Today, the date is 15. So on the 22nd, which is Wednesday, we ought to get that information as we usually do when we request the 7-day period. We want that report with clear timeframes, as you have indicated. This was done by this person. This is what happens. This is what we're going to do. It's going to assist us in compiling a proper report that will be taken to Parliament for further deliberation and discussions by all the political parties in the Parliament. Thank you again to the petitioners, the people that are representing Wynberg and Waterloo Green, residents and communities for bringing this to our attention. Thank you, DM and your team, regional manager. You may be excused so that we deal with other matters of the portfolio committee. Thank you. Lwazi?
Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. The minutes of the previous meeting?
Yes, I'm loading them, Chairperson.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Lwazi. Honorable members, these are the minutes of our previous meeting, the meeting that we held last week. May I then get, firstly, corrections, amendments, hands that are talking to that? Okay. In the absence of any corrections and amendments, may we then get a mover for the adoption of these minutes as the true reflection of what we discussed last week?
I move, Chair Mjobo.
Thank you, Honorable Mjobo. May I get a seconder, please, honorable members?
I'll second, Chair.
I'll second, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you so much. Do we have any announcement, Lwazi?
No, Chairperson.
But honorable members, I don't know why Lwazi is not announcing this. I think next week, honorable members, on the 22nd, is it 22nd? Our BA report will be some of the items that will be discussed in the plenary. Please check whether it's 22nd or 21st, but it will be discussed in the plenary. We know that on that one, all the parties, they will have to make statements. So I just want you to be ready. And lastly, on the 29th of November, honorable members, we once said that we want to have a physical meeting, and then we agreed that we will have a meeting on the 29th. So if you are not there, that means you will be absent. So you won't complain about the load shedding or whatever. So on the 29th, honorable members, our meeting will be physical. So please make arrangements so that you are in Cape Town on Tuesday. You attend the portfolio committee on Wednesday at 9. Thank you again, honorable members, for your inputs, your comments on the petition that we were dealing with today. A petition that talks directly to what we have been saying to department. I think I'm happy when we are always proven correct, because it's something that honorable members, we have raised it several times with the department, the issue of these properties that are now housing criminals. Something must be done, honorable members. On that note, honorable members, thank you for your participation in the meeting. The meeting is adjourned. See you next week, Tuesday, 22nd.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.